Out of all this creativity, Joe has created his own business that brings a human and often humorous side to what can be a hard process, teamwork. He strives to help others become successful. In fact, Joe's motto is, ta-da, your success is our business. Tonight, Joe is going to help us take a critical look at where we are and where we can go, because we all know that we are never finished making our organization and our individual craft better. Joe Nocerino.
My challenge is going to be not to fall over. Thank you, Carol. I'm not sure about that math, Carol, because I'm only 48.
We were 8.
My father started the business. Good evening.
Good evening.
I am very, very pleased to be here for a number of reasons. One of which is you're a different organization than I'm used to. My business is in government contracting, and so it's always interesting to peek into or to delve into another industry or another business. Something I would recommend to everyone. Don't get isolated in your own area. Look into other areas that have nothing to do with your business, and you'll find some interesting things that are either directly applicable or with some changes could be very applicable to your use in promoting your company. How many marketeers are there here? Every hand should go up. How many selling people are here? Salespeople. They need to go hand in hand, and I'll get to that in a minute. I started my business a while back and felt very, very isolated in it until I learned a few things. Small businesses like you and I run America. There are 28 million small businesses in this country, and they employ 77 million people. 54% of them, a large percentage, majority, are home-based, probably just like you and I. I started home-based, grew to a certain point, became totally virtual, back to being home-based. It represents, you and I and others like us, represent 44% of the payroll. Now, most of us are not aware of that. I certainly wasn't aware of that at one time. I thought, well, I'm a small business and all these giants are out there, they're what runs America. That's not true. You and I and others like us run America. Of all the patents that are out there, 13 times are done by small business than large businesses. Does this surprise anyone? Yeah, it surprises me every time I go through these numbers. Well, let's get into the topic of this evening. How many have done it on their own?
Sort of.
Anybody who thinks that is delusional, egotistically foolish. You don't do anything on your own, believe me. Whether it be in business or it be in life, you are dependent upon others, and you should leverage that dependency to your advantage. That's where this whole question of working together, collaborativeness, comes in. Never think of yourself in business by yourself. Your colleague sitting next to you could be of help to you. Your colleague sitting across from you, who might be a competitor, can be of help to you. Leverage any resource you can and put away the egotistical deliriousness of thinking you've done it on your own or you're going to do it on your own. It's just not the way it works. Anybody can vouch for that? Anybody can say, yes. This is going to be interactive, so. Did you raise your hand? Oh, you should have. Have you worked with others in your business?
Yes.
In what way?
Collaborating on projects, everybody taking a piece and bringing it together into one.
Making synergism? More than the sum of the parts? Okay, you had your hand up.
Well, in my daytime business, when I was working full-time, that happened all the time. Everything was collaborative, so.
Is collaboration new to some people? Well, it might be, and it shouldn't be, because we all help each other out in one way or another. If you think back to where you are now and how you got there, there was some bodies along the way that helped you get there. And there'll be more on the way to getting you further. Next. What about collaboration and competitiveness? I sell this glass sculpturing. She sells glass sculpturing. Can we work together?
Yeah.
Very much so. You know, when my business got going, we develop proposals for companies that go after government contracts. I called a meeting of others like my company. Said, hey, let's get together and put this proposal industry council together. Well, when we had that first meeting, you can imagine the looks on their faces when they walked in. Very suspicious, very thinking, what is Joe up to? What is he trying to do to get my business, perhaps? Well, we worked together for years, and we worked on things that were common to us in terms of needs as a small business. What might be a need that you would have that I might be benefiting from, even though we're competing against each other on our products?
Well, a good source for, say, the glass.
Sourcing. In my business, sourcing was getting other associates to come in and do the work, to the point where we shared associates with each other. So behind all of this collaborativeness is trust. If you don't trust, don't collaborate. 99% of business, believe it or not, runs on trust. And that's what you hear about in the news, but trust is the bottom foundation for all successful businesses. We had legal issues that any of us could have had to deal with. Well, who do you recommend as a lawyer? How did you handle this problem you're having with this customer? We came together once a month, and it was very, very enriching, and we all learned a lot from each other. But if we were outside selling our same wares, we were fiercely competitive. But when it came to things like administrative support, or how do you deal with some of the taxes, how do you set up your tax system, these are things we all have in common. And so think about how you can collaborate with anyone that's in your field who may be a competitor. But that's not the issue of selling against each other. It's the issue of supporting each other. Big, big, very, very important part of your success. How many people play the horses? Come on. Yes. Okay. Where do you play?
Laurel Racetrack.
Laurel. Good. Now.
Because my partner works there.
Good. It's a jockey?
No, I know the jockey.
Oh, you know the jockey. Well, that's good too. All right, then you know the answer to this question. What determines the winner of a horse race usually?
The first one over the line.
Yeah, she's right. And what is that sometimes by? A nose. And when you think about being competitive, think about the nose. Now, Carol, okay. Next one. On a horse, we know where the nose is. In your material, you never know where that nose is going to be. It's going to be wherever you have something that's a gem that somebody picks up on and says, because of this, I want you, or I want your product, or I want your piece of art. So think in terms of where your nose is in terms of your marketing materials. Now we're going to get into a little bit of marketing now. But before you can market, you have to know who you are. You have to know yourself. What sets you apart in terms of your materials that you sell?
Creativity, originality.
All good, but not discriminating. Because if I ask somebody else, they'll probably tell me something, some variation on that. Think about what sets you apart that nobody else can say.
Nobody else in this area carves eggshells.
Excellent.
I got the market! Nobody else wants it, but I got it.
Who else has a similar discriminator? Yes.
Nobody else in this area makes fused glass landscapes.
Very good. Is that true? Yeah. Anybody else in here make them?
I said that I make fused glass landscapes, and nobody else in the area makes those.
Our discriminator is fused glass landscapes. Okay. Yes, sir.
Reputation.
Such as? Yeah, dig deeper.
A reputation for a person that will always show up on time or earlier than they said they would be there, always get the job done correctly, and always charge a fair price.
That's a very good characteristic to have, not discriminating. Somebody else will say that, whether it's true or not. You need to come up with things about you personally or your products that nobody else can say. Very, very important in terms of setting you aside, because once you do that, you have no competition. And you've got something that's going to attract people to you. So think about that. Discriminators. It could be in your past history. It could be in you or your product. It could be the way you put this particular product together, the ingredients you use. Yes?
What about the quality of materials that go into the overall product?
Unfortunately, that's important to have, but everybody's going to say that whether it's true or not. So you have to come up with something that if you said, I do X, Y, Z, I couldn't come along and say the same thing. I could come along and say something about the quality, even though it might not be true. But it's important to have. Yes, somebody back there with the hands up?
You're asking what our discriminator is.
What differentiates you from others?
One thing that makes my work for me different from everyone else has, in this room, has it also, but it belongs to each of us individually, which is whatever will make it came from our own heart.
Now, that's very good, and if you can put a little bit more of a tag on that, such that it applies only to you, then you've got a discriminator.
And it applies to every one of us.
Well, not with your tag. If you put the right tag on it, it would apply only to you. And that's what you want as a discriminator, not something that anybody else can say. Although those are important characteristics to have, but they're not going to differentiate you necessarily. Yes, ma'am?
It would be like your niche. I mean, is that what you're after?
A niche that no one else can say they also have.
Okay, I do accessories for tea and travel.
Okay. Do other people do that?
Very few.
If there's one other one, it's not a discriminator. So, but wait a minute, you have the basis perhaps for a discriminator. We're putting a little twist on it that's unique to you. So don't throw it away. Play on it. Work on it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think, I don't mean to be argumentative, but this sounds like a little bit oversimplified, because I think we each have discriminators. You know, I'm left-handed and wear my hair long, but that is not something which is going to make people want to buy my product. The discrimination has to have A, something to do with your product, B, something to do with your art, and C, something which will attract your potential audience or your customer base. So just having something that discriminates you is not in and of itself sufficient.
I add that to what I've said. I totally agree.
Well, that's copyright.
Roll. Anything else about discriminators? Sometimes, yes, ma'am.
I think it also depends upon where you are selling or where your market is, because what I do is no one else does it, but I found there are certain places I go and that is not my market.
All right. So stay in the areas where you're going to be set aside in a positive way. Yeah, very good. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I think one of the things that we have talked about before is that, yes, what you sell needs to be different from what anybody else sells, but it has to be, that difference has to be relevant. Somebody
Right.
has to care about
Right.
that particular difference,
Right.
which is why quality, which is a very vague concept at best, isn't really a differentiator. Because quality means different things to different people. Unless you define what you mean by quality, it won't matter.
It's true. But it's still an important characteristic to have. So there are important characteristics, there are attributes, but they're not necessarily discriminators unless it sets you apart in terms of being able to market your product better.
Could I say, Joe, that
Please.
I use antique buttons that will never ever be made again. So my materials are very unusual in that they will not be made again.
Yes, that would be a discriminator. Mhm. Very definitely. Now the question to the gentleman's comment,
Is who cares?
I don't put it that way. Does it add to the sellability or the ability for you to sell your product? It could. You shouldn't have only one discriminator. You should have many discriminators. 5, 10, 20. And as you were pointing out, not all of them are applicable all the time. So you want to use those that are appropriate to the environment that you're either living in or working in. Again, the bottom line is, does it set you aside in a positive way to help you sell more? An important part of defining your discriminator is, with regard to you or your product, what is the feature that you bring? A feature is something that is inherent or characteristic of what it is you make or you. Now, it should also have a benefit, and that's in the eyes of the buyer. What is the benefit to the buyer? So you have feature A in your discriminator, and it should then have a prime benefit that it brings to the buyer. Someone give me an example of either a feature or benefit, or tie both of them together, of your product? Yes, thank you.
I think this goes to the from the heart. They're one of a kind. I'd say more than 90% of what we produce, each is an individual piece. It's not replicated. It's not machine made. So what we deliver are items that are rare, unusual, and one of a kind.
And made in the USA.
And made in the USA.
Very good. Okay, next one. Marketing versus selling. The difference. Anyone in the back here? What's the difference between marketing and selling? And it's very, very critical. You know the difference.
You create a desire for your product.
And that is?
Marketing.
Marketing, yes it is. Versus selling. What is selling? Going through a transaction of exchanging a product for a fee. Now, why is it important to know the difference between the two? Well, one reason is because it'll confuse the customer if you're marketing on one hand and the next minute you're selling, and the next minute you're marketing, and the next minute you're selling. Marketing precedes selling. Know when it stops. Marketing is getting the attention of the potential customer. Now, how do you do that?
A slogan can do it.
Slogan could be the way you display your product.
Yeah.
That's marketing.
Be a story.
A story that you attach to the product. Very good. Flyer, a picture, or a name, or something of that sort. All marketing, though. What else might be marketing?
Yourself.
Your personal involvement in the product. Now, when you get to a point, and this is a point that you have to have a feel for, and you have a customer in front of you, and you've gone through some marketing with them in terms of the conversation, you need to know when to stop. And let them digest what you've said, so that you can then go into the selling mode. Here are some of the things we said about marketing. It's the seeds of the sale. You have to have it. Although it's nice if you can sell without marketing, but very rare. Because even if it's just sitting there, it's marketing itself for a sale. Referrals are great marketing tools. Don't let anybody sell for you. So let somebody refer, but not sell for you. You do the selling. You're the best seller of your product. Collaboration with others amongst yourselves, that's all marketing. Working together, as we've talked about already. Now the selling is when you start to put forth why this product is good for the customer. Whether it's got features or it's got benefits, or what discriminates it positively such that they should buy yours versus somebody else without ever saying something negative about your competitor. Never say something negative about your competitor. We talked, I heard talk about an artist statement. Is that what I? Very important to have. Number one, it puts your mind into the mindset that you should have about who you are and what you are about. And then share that as part of your selling. Because you've already gotten the attraction of the individual. They're there with the potential to buy. Now it's to stop marketing and actually get the transaction going so you get the sale. Thanks. One thing before I close, I'd like to ask if any of you have looked into doing government contracting with your wares. Has anybody explored that? Yes, ma'am.
It wasn't exactly government contracting, but a lot of government agencies have vendor sales in buildings, and you can set up. They have several vendors lined up in a corridor.
Is everybody hearing that?
Cafeteria.
Okay, that's important. Please say that again.
I'll make sure I'm not pulling before.
We're going to have to get up, Roz. It's not going to make it.
Okay. I was just saying that some government agencies have vendor programs where you can go in the government buildings and they set up little areas in the buildings, like in corridors or in their cafeteria or someplace like that. And it's usually jewelry people and things that are easily transported, because you really don't have a lot of space. You get maybe one table, but people are passing by in the corridors and they can come and buy things from you.
Good. Very good. Another avenue for a show or display. If you're ever interested, though, in looking into what you can do as a contractor to the federal government, I know that all the Air Force organizations, Army, Navy, and whatnot, actually let contracts out to people, such as yourself, for different reasons for their products. And the best place to look at that is to go to BizOps on the internet, or go to Google and just write in government contracting for artists and craftsmen, and you'll get some interesting potential items. That's not to say you want to do business with the federal government, but if it's of interest to you, it's something you might want to look at. My pleasure to be here and share with you a few thoughts. Thank you very much for your invite.